Hello dear friends, welcome to channel Crime Story Diaries. The fateful encounter that marked the beginning of this tragic tale took place in 2013 in Perth, Western Australia. It was there that 20-year-old Anthony Harvey and 36-year-old Mara, who worked together, were introduced. Despite the 16-year age gap, their friendship blossomed into romantic relations. Shortly after the start of their romance, Mara became pregnant, and Anthony proposed marriage to her. However, beneath the pleasant exterior of the young man lurked the persona of a true monster, transforming this story into a bloody tragedy. In 2015, the couple welcomed their first daughter, Charlotte, and a year later, Mara became pregnant again, giving birth to twins Alice and Beatrice. The woman had always dreamt of a large family and was overjoyed to see her dream materialize. Anthony worked in the mines, a demanding and hazardous yet well-paying job. However, the earnings were insufficient to support their large family, prompting him to seek a more stable job closer to home. Working in the mines required prolonged trips to other regions of the country, which was acceptable for a solitary individual, but not for a family man. The family hardly saw the father. Mara wished for her husband to be home more often with her and the children. The family moved to a house on KUD Street, in the quiet suburban area of Bedford, near a school and essential infrastructure. Mara, a wise woman, did not wish to stay at home and depend on her husband's income. Before starting their life together, she had accumulated a significant sum of money, part of which she invested in a business extracting minerals, generating passive income. From these savings, Mara made the initial mortgage payment for the house and helped Anthony open his own lawn mowing business by purchasing a franchise from the renowned company Jim's. This allowed them to attract clients more quickly than starting such a business from scratch. Anthony actively promoted his services in the area using the well-known franchise brand. However, the business's growth was not as rapid as the couple desired. Money was always tight. Therefore, Mara took a job as a cashier at a local supermarket and sent the daughters to daycare. She had no other choice as all the family's savings went into the home and business. She took charge of the family's finances as Anthony was irresponsible and struggled with this task. Mara allocated funds more effectively to ensure there was enough for all five of them. This irritated Anthony, who felt that his wife did not take him seriously and mocked him, only giving him a weekly allowance. This led to disagreements between the couple. Mara bore the burden of work, household management, child rearing, family business development, and budget management. Despite the immense workload, Mara was very content with her life. A large family had always been her main dream and priority. She adored her three daughters, as she shared with her sister Taryn. 3-year-old Charlotte was an energetic, self-assured girl who enjoyed interacting with people. 2-year-old Alice was sociable and bold, while her twin sister Beatrice was of a calmer disposition. Beatrice had a special bond with 73-year-old grandmother Beverly, who often visited them, assisting with household chores and the children. None of these 5 women suspected the dreadful danger looming over them. On September 8, 2018, the 25-year-old Anthony embarked on a journey to Pembroke to visit his father. The road stretched for nearly 15 hours. Arriving late in the evening, he immediately disclosed to his father that he had committed something dreadful involving his family, his wife, mother-in-law, and children. He recounted causing harm and regretted his actions, mourning for them. As the father listened to his son, he could not believe what he heard, thinking it was some ill-conceived joke. However, Anthony was serious and bore a grave countenance. The father entertained the possibility that his son's words might hold truth. The tale of the gruesome crime so profoundly affected him that he promptly notified the authorities. During the night of September 8th to 9, the police arrived at the house, and Anthony voluntarily surrendered to the authorities. He detailed how he took the lives of his wife, mother-in-law, and 3 daughters, aged 3, 2, and 2. He spoke of Mara as a splendid wife and mother, deeply loved by him. He claimed to have been of sound mind until that moment, harboring no malice towards his kin. The culprit could not articulate the motive behind his actions, expressing remorse for his deeds and struggling to answer the police's inquiries. Following the suspect's arrest, investigators proceeded to the family's residence. The bodies of 41-year-old Mara and the girls were found in the bedroom. The killer had placed them there in a manner suggesting a mother embracing her daughters. Surrounding them were flowers, the children's beloved toys, cards, and a note in which Anthony confessed his wrongdoing. The mother-in-law's body remained on the kitchen floor, where she met her demise. In the confession, the killer expressed profound regret for his actions and a desire to undo everything. He noted his mental derangement at the time of the crime, unable to explain the rationale behind his deeds. Among the findings was a diary belonging to Anthony, detailing his mental state shortly before the crime and his plan to exact vengeance on his loved ones. This was not a spontaneous act, but a meticulously calculated scheme. The brutality of the murder was so shocking that even seasoned officers could not contain their tears during the scene examination, suspect interrogation, and interviews with journalists. This incident marked one of the bloodiest chapters in the history of Western Australia, instilling horror in society. Investigators sought to prevent the leakage of information regarding the gruesome specifics of the crime, to avoid inciting panic among the local residents and the Harvey family's neighbors. However, concealing the extent of the atrocity committed by the family patriarch was virtually impossible. Acquaintances characterized the couple as kind, amiable individuals. No one anticipated such cruelty from the outwardly calm Anthony, especially towards his own family. Even a cursory acquaintance with the event's details elicited shock in people. The house where the tragedy unfolded transformed into a makeshift memorial. People brought children's toys, photos, and items in memory of the brutally slain victims. Even strangers donated money for the burial of the 2 women and 3 girls, as the relatives lacked the means to do so. The collection of donations was organized by close family members to give the deceased a dignified farewell. People recalled the family as entirely ordinary, friendly, and happy. Disagreements between Mara and Anthony were commonplace, as in most couples, but they never exceeded the bounds of normalcy. The yard echoed with joyful children's laughter constantly. This persisted until the very last day, when the girls fell silent forever. On the final day of the Harvey family's existence, Anthony made an entry in his journal. After consuming half a bottle of wine, he penned that he had embraced his dark, animalistic side. He acknowledged his remorse for his actions, stating that he was not a psychopath, but felt compelled to silence his wife and smother the children. Following this, a true hunt would commence. The next 5 days passed mundanely for Anthony, despite being surrounded by the lifeless bodies of his 5 closest kin. It remains a mystery how he endured the unbearable stench of decay. He informed Mary's workplace that she was ill, thus no one was searching for her. He continued to fulfill lawn mowing orders, sold his wife's valuables and other possessions, liquidated their assets. Shortly before the murders, he persuaded Mary to grant him access to her bank card. Presumably he was planning an escape, hence accumulating funds. In total, he had amassed over $40,000. Ultimately, guilt overcame him, and after 6 days, Anthony drove to his father to confess to the gruesome deed. According to him, during those 5 days spent with the bodies, he began to feel remorse. Hence, he adorned the deceased with flowers, toys, and notes expressing regret. According to the entries, Harvey had planned the brutal execution of his family a month before he struck his wife, but for unknown reasons, he postponed his intentions. He purchased the knives for the massacre a few days before the tragedy. The diary contained a step-by-step murder plan and a list of tasks to be completed before and after. Call Mary's workplace, gain access to her bank accounts, withdraw money, and so forth. The criminal crossed out some of the points, while others, such as buying a car, remained only in the planning stage. He considered divorcing his wife, but then reconsidered, evidently deeming murder a better solution. This was a significant piece of evidence for investigators, indicating premeditation and meticulous planning of the crime. It appeared that the sadist was planning to flee, liquidating as many assets as possible, and purchasing a new car. It is puzzling that he considered this option more rational than divorce. On that fateful day of September 8, 2018, Mara returned from work around 11:30 p.m. As soon as she crossed the threshold, her husband pounced on her and struck her with a metal pipe on the head. After several strong blows, the woman lost consciousness. Anthony then retrieved a large knife, resembling a machete, which he had purchased specifically for her a few days before the deed. He dragged his wife into the kitchen and inflicted 12 knife blows on her, causing her death. The killer then took a smaller knife, also purchased shortly before the crime, and intended for children. Armed with it, the man ascended to the bedroom where his sleeping daughters lay. He attacked the girls one by one, inflicting wounds upon them. In total, the children received 38 stab wounds. Initially, Anthony assaulted Beatrice, then Alice, and finally the eldest, Charlotte. All of this was meticulously planned, hence his selection of different murder weapons, a large knife for his wife and a smaller one for the children. After the deed, the beast took a shower and calmly went to sleep. Upon waking in the morning, he began to tidy up the house. Suddenly, the 73-year-old mother-in-law, who often visited to help her daughter and granddaughters, arrived at the home. Anthony went out to meet her, kindly assisting her in carrying bags from the car. Upon entering, Beverly witnessed the horrific scene of a bloody massacre. The woman met the same fate as the other family members. Anthony stabbed her with a knife. Although he had not planned to kill the elderly woman, she became an accidental victim, being in the wrong place at the wrong time. After this, the killer took another shower, drank coffee, and took a nap before setting out to fulfill lawn mowing orders. He continued his normal life as if nothing had happened, despite committing the most massive murder in the history of Western Australia less than a day ago. This shocked the detectives, who could not comprehend how such a thing was possible. A month after the tragedy, Anthony's friend described him in an interview as a hedonistic reveler, far from being an exemplary father and husband. Despite his initial efforts to be a good family man after the birth of their first daughter, he proved to be too young and immature for the role. When Mara became pregnant with twins, Anthony became enraged at the prospect of 2 more children. He completely abandoned his family responsibilities, shifting all burdens onto his wife's shoulders. He detested fatherhood and spending time with his daughters. It seemed that through his savage actions, he sought to escape from his problems and responsibilities. As the prosecutor unveiled the gruesome details of the crime in court, Anthony lowered his head and covered his ears with his hands to shield himself from hearing it. The psychiatric evaluation revealed no significant deviations, except for anxiety and mild depression. The investigators' assumptions of narcissistic personality disorder and autism were not substantiated. The jury found him guilty of the premeditated murder of his entire family. The sentence was unprecedentedly harsh: life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. This measure was deemed necessary to appease public outrage, demanding maximum punishment for the beast in human form. 2 weeks later, Anthony attempted to appeal the verdict, calling it unjustified, but later withdrew his appeal. He will never walk free. The Harvey family home in Bedford was demolished to erase any reminders of the gruesome tragedy for the local residents. This story garnered particular attention also because within a few months, 2 similar mass murders occurred in the area. In May 2018, a shooting at a house in Osmington claimed the lives of 7 people. Catherine Miles and 4 of her children were found shot dead in their beds, while her mother Cindy Miles' body was discovered in a neighboring house. Grandfather Peter Miles, who orchestrated the bloody massacre, was also found dead with a gunshot wound. 3 of his rifles were found on the property. In June 2018, a mother and her 2 children were found dead in a house in Ellenbrook, north of Perth. The crime was reported by the woman's son, Tien Cum Vernon Peterson Crofts, who entered the nearest store where employees called the police. Upon arrival, officers found the bodies of Michelle Peterson and her son Roy in the house, while her daughter Bella was in critical condition. The girl passed away on the way to the hospital. 2018 marked the bloodiest year in the history of Western Australia. The Harvey family incident stood out among similar crimes for several reasons. Firstly, Anthony behaved atypically for a family annihilator. Typically, such criminals are cowards who fear societal condemnation, hence, more often take their own lives, as seen in recent cases involving the Kislak, McFadden, and Haight families. Or they flee to evade responsibility and start a new life, as was the case with the Lutz, Carls, and Jacobson families. Or they dispose of bodies, report their relatives missing to the police, plead for help in finding their family, only for it to be revealed that the crime was committed by the grief-stricken relative themselves, as in the case of Chris Watts. Anthony Harvey's story starkly differs from these examples. It somewhat resembles another unconventional case involving the Brown family, where the killer lived with the victims' bodies for 6 days, carrying on with daily life and interacting with neighbors. Harvey also lacked a clear motive, unlike most family annihilators. He felt remorse after the act, spent 5 days contemplating in the house with the deceased bodies of his family. Despite the meticulous planning of the murders, he was convicted. Experts highlight this case as unique among similar crimes. Traditionally, thank you for watching and remind you that it would be great if you support the video by liking and subscribing to the channel.